Do you stay or do you leave? It's always one of the toughest questions that you can ask yourself if you're going through a really tough time in your marriage or potentially facing a separation or divorce. So in today's video, I'm going to explain to you 4 signs that your marriage is not worth fighting for and it's time to let go. Now I know there's a part of you that's watching this video that's probably thinking, I want to skip to the next one, because the truth is that a lot of the time if we're going through a tough time in a marriage, we don't want to hear the signs that the marriage might be over. It's the last thing you want to hear. But I really believe in the importance of gaining knowledge to then develop wisdom. And so when you have that knowledge, you can then allow yourself to process it, to mull over it, and then to ultimately make the decision that's best for you and your family in the long term. And that's where the wisdom piece really kicks in. So really pay attention to these signs. And if that means that you end up saying, hey, look, I want to stick around, I want to make this work, fantastic. And if it means that you decide, okay, look, it's time to walk away, well, then at least you're going to end the suffering that you're probably going through right now. We want to make sure that you're in the best possible place. And these 4 signs are really important to observe as you're working yourself through this difficult situation. Now, the first sign is abusive and controlling behaviors. I think we can all agree that physical abuse is unacceptable in a marriage, period. And look, I don't really care if a husband is going through some difficult times and he's struggling emotionally and mentally and so on. I have empathy for people being in that place, but that's no excuse for any kind of physical behavior. And I really believe that if that's been occurring over a prolonged period of time, or even if it's just happened once or twice, and that breaches your values as a person, then I truly believe that that is a sign that it's time to walk away. But there are also other signs of emotional abuse and controlling behavior and so forth that you need to be mindful of. So for example, if you are controlled at every level from a financial perspective, if you're not allowed to make any decisions whatsoever, if he is intentionally maybe using up all the gas in your car, or engaging in these kinds of manipulative behaviors to ensure that you're in a position where you are suffering and struggling so that it forces you to beg and plead for money and so on, that's completely unacceptable. That sort of behavior is a true reflection of the kind of individual that he is, and you need to be really, really mindful of it. But let's say, for example, you're always fearful of, being on the phone when he's around, or if you're worried about, going off and engaging in some extracurricular activities when it's time that he's around and so on. To me, that's not something that's a sustainable situation for you. You should be allowed to go and do what you want. If you want to go out and hang out with your friends, or if you want to go and play sport or go to the gym, or you want to go and talk to a friend, or if you want to talk to your therapist or whatever, you should be allowed to. There's no reason why you shouldn't be allowed to do those things. But if you're fearful of the impact that it might have on him, or if you're feeling like you're being controlled all the time in terms of the things that you want to do, to me that is a real sign that you have to A, set some boundaries for yourself, and B, that maybe this marriage isn't the right one for you. I know that's an uncomfortable thing because, as I said before, we don't want to lose something that we've had for such a long time. But this is about true empowerment. This is about really allowing yourself to fill your bucket up, to build the most beautiful relationship that you can with yourself. And I think, unfortunately, what happens is for a lot of people, because they may have a real lack of self-worth, they're always looking externally to get those needs met. So if you are seeing those signs and it's consistent and there's no attempt on his part to try and change, or even when you've had conversations that he's not really shifting and he's very firm in his beliefs, no, this is how it's going to be and that's it, well, that can be a sign that it might be time to let go of that marriage. Now, the second sign are the post-check-in breaches of trust. So what this means is that there are obviously lots of instances of infidelity, and it always saddens me to hear that, but it is just the reality of the situation. There are going to be instances on both parties, by the way. I'm not saying this is just a male thing. I've known plenty of women over the years, and also women that I've actually interacted with in my business who have engaged in infidelity. So I want to make that really, really clear. But the point is if there has been infidelity in the marriage, and he's the one that's kind of engaged in it, and there's been maybe some lies and some deceit around it. If he is someone that actually genuinely wants to make this work, if he has said, look, I want to make this work, I'm committed to you, I love you, you mean the world to me, I screwed up, my fault, etc., and he's genuinely taking responsibility for that, then what needs to happen is there almost needs to be a stake in the ground there. So, okay, at this point, if we're going to move forward, if things are going to shift, then we need to make sure that this never happens again. That there is no instances of, any breaches in trust, any lying, any of that sort of stuff going on a consistent basis. Now, the problem is that if there has been a number of lies and so on in the past, you may see some examples or some instances pop up about the past. And that's just, the unfortunate nature of it. Suddenly, the other lady might reach out, or you might have found out some more information about what happens. And then that creates more and more pain and more frustration and more hurt for you. And, it kind of exacerbates the wounds of betrayal. And because it exacerbates those wounds, then it's going to make it feel like that's actually happening right now, when it was actually something that happened in the past, but it's just allowing some of those wounds to resurface. And so what we have to do is we've got to make sure that we're observing, are these things actually happening right now or into the future as well? Like if you're seeing these things happening consistently over a period of time into the future, then that's always a sign that it might be time to let go, because he's not demonstrating his ability to stay in touch with his own integrity. That he's more focused on getting his own individual needs met, just trying to feel special, or feeling like, being with another woman is almost like a drug. It's almost like an addiction on some level because of the feelings that he gets and so on. So you've got to be mindful of that. Now, as I said, that's not in any way to invalidate anything that you're feeling or, criticize anything that's going on in terms of what you're experiencing. You're entitled to feel crappy about the things that have happened in the past. You're entitled to be pissed off. You're allowed to share your frustration and so on about things that are starting to resurface. But if you have had a conversation with him, if you have put a stake in the ground and said, all right, well, I want to make this work, and we both need to commit to this, and there cannot be any lies, there cannot be any deceit, there cannot be any infidelity. We're going to cut off access to, certain applications if they are a trigger point and so on. And then some of that stuff comes up from the past, then I think it's important that you acknowledge that it is in the past. Yes, like I say, you can feel hurt, but it's about saying, are these things happening right now in terms of, is he actively engaging in an affair or interacting with this other woman or whoever it may be? That's what you have to be really clear on, because otherwise what happens is he will then feel like, well, there's no point. Like, she's not, everything I do, it's like nothing seems to work, and he'll feel deflated, and he'll feel like giving up as well. And yes, he has to put the work in. Yes, he has to fight for you. Yes, he has to do everything in his power to make the best of the situation that he possibly can, and apologize and really make amends for his errors and his indiscretions. But at the same time, there needs to be some form of, I guess, appreciation for the work that he's actually doing, if he is actually doing that work. Because only then can two parties come together and elevate themselves, rebuild their trust, and so on. If it's not that, then it's just going to cause more problems in the long run. Thirdly, do you guys have different visions, goals, and life values? This is a really important one, because, early on when people get together, a lot of the time they don't know enough about themselves. It's just, there was some lovely connection, there was a bit of banter, a bit of flirting, you kind of enjoyed each other's company, gave you the flutters, and that's a good thing. And suddenly, before you know it, you guys get together and you're immersed in it, and it's time to actually move forward and move to the next step. And a lot of the time people get involved just purely out of convenience. They don't want to go through the process of like trying to find that perfect person in their head or whatever. So they just kind of get together and just, start a relationship. In fact, I remember having a conversation with a person I knew years ago, and he was mentioning about his relationship, and I just asked him point blank, I said, look, bro, are you happy in this relationship? And he was like, oh, yeah, it's good, it's okay. And I said, look, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I'm not really convinced with what you're saying. He said, well, man, like, it's a little bit too late to try and find someone else. And I just thought to myself, how sad that was, that people get to a point that they end up just settling and saying, well, that's as good as it'll get, so I'm just going to tolerate it. Because this is exactly the problem that occurs. This is why so many relationships end up flopping, because people just get together for convenience sake, or it's okay, or you just kind of coexist in life and things are okay. But you want to raise the bar, which means you have to kind of assess where you guys are at in terms of your values and your fundamentals in life. What's most important to you in life? And that doesn't just have to be one thing, it can be multiple things. I remember going through the process myself and asking myself these questions and, coming out with things like, well, family is extremely important to me. Having a partner that's actually going to really genuinely want to get to know my friends and family and, have a really, caring and empathetic view. Somebody that was actually going to be really interested and passionate about, my development and my growth as a person, was going to support me along that journey, and vice versa. Operating with complete integrity. That was extremely important for me. And so on. So there's a lot of values that we have to get aligned with, not only around sort of internal characteristics, but also what's your relationship like with money? What is your career aspirations and so on? Because, one person, for example, might really be big on their career. They might want someone who is also actively interested in their career. But one person might not be interested in the career, the other person might be. That might work for some people. For other people, it may not. So it's about getting clear on what it is that you want, what it is that you don't want, what are your deal breakers. And once you understand that, then you can actually start to make better decisions about your future. And if that means, hey, look, this guy is just on a completely different wavelength. He's in a completely different world. The things that are important to him just have no meaning to me, have no value to me at all. And I don't care about any of those things. And, it absolutely is possible that two people can grow apart or outgrow each other. And so if you're seeing that, if you're seeing that there is just, you're exponentially growing as a person and you're doing a lot of inner work and he has no interest and he's just focused on some of these external things, or, just constantly getting his ego stroked and so on, well then, you might decide, I don't know about this. I don't know about this person anymore. We're on completely different wavelengths. And also, how much of an interest does he have in making sure that you're also in a good place, and vice versa? How important is that to you guys? Or is it just, well, we're just coexisting and that's about it? Understanding values is absolutely crucial in a marriage. And when you get clear on those, then you can ultimately make a decision that's for the highest good for all concerned. And finally, are your internal wounds being projected out into the relationship? So what this means is that, as I was saying before, if you've got these deep-rooted beliefs of that you're not good enough or that you're not worthy of love and so on, what ends up happening is those wounds ultimately are then projected onto the relationship. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say, you've got these deep wounds of inadequacy or feeling like you're not worthy of love and so on. If that's been your experience over the years, which if you are, I'm extremely sorry to hear that because I know how tough it is. But if that's been your experience, then subconsciously what happens is we attract someone who is going to bring out those wounds. They end up becoming almost like the blank canvas for it. So we project those wounds onto them. That then creates an environment where those wounds can actually come out, and their behaviors of control, of narcissism and so on can also be projected out. So this is where you've got to be really, really careful here. And so if you are seeing that those wounds, like in your relationship, if you're finding that you're always feeling unworthy or not good enough or like a failure or whatever, and he is taking advantage of that and bringing up those wounds inside of you, well then that can be a sign that this environment, this relationship is not healthy for you. Now, it does tie into the abuse side of things that I was mentioning earlier in the video, but what I'm specifically talking about is your own internal wounds as well that need to be addressed. Because, sometimes people can have those wounds, but occasionally they will attract someone who is loving and caring and so on. And it can bring out, other challenges in terms of no matter how much love you get from that partner, it never feels like enough because you're never feeling worthy. It's like the bucket that has a hole in it and you keep pouring water into it and it empties out. But what I'm specifically talking about here is that if you're in a situation where these wounds are being projected and you're dealing with someone who's quite controlling and narcissistic and so on in terms of their actions, then that can be a sign that you may need to walk away and really do some internal healing work first, and then in the future attract someone who's actually going to be an ideal fit for you, rather than just staying put because you're afraid of being alone, or you're afraid of losing your family or whatever. I get how painful that is. I really do. I hear about these stories every single day, and it breaks my heart because you've got these people who are such beautiful souls, and they are just consistently being, treated poorly, but also having their wounds opened up over and over and over. And I want you to know that you are courageous. You are magnificent in your own way. You are worthy of love. Everyone is worthy of love. And it's important that you do make the best decisions that you possibly can for your future, because otherwise, like I say, it's just going to cause more problems and more issues and continue the process of suffering. And that's not a fun thing at all. So if you are observing these behaviors, then it might be time to walk away, to let go, and to really go through a process of internal healing. And look, if you are struggling, if you are battling to work your way through some of these challenges and you're not sure how to move forward and you really want to go through a powerful cathartic experience in terms of transformation, then I'd love to be of service to you through my program, The Authentic Relationship System. It's an amazing program. I know you're going to get tons out of it because we go deep. It's not band-aid surface level stuff. We want to go deep in terms of your transformation. It's something that I truly believe that if you resonate with my videos and you connect them with what I'm talking about, that I know you'll be able to get a lot out of it. So, if it feels right for you, in the description section below, there's a link which says book a call with me. Just click on that link, choose a time that works for you, and then I'll contact you at that scheduled time, just so I can learn a little bit more about your situation, understand where you are now, where you want to get to, and how you can bridge that gap in the shortest possible time. And do our best to try and help you to save your marriage as well, because ultimately that's what we want to be doing. So once again, just click on that link, and I can't wait to speak to you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, make sure you hit that like button below. If you want to get more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And do let me know if you've got any questions or comments or takeaways. I always love reading the comments, so make sure you write them below and I'll respond to every single one of you. And if you want to understand the power of walking away and how it can actually make you attractive, click this video below. Thank you so much. God bless, and I'll talk to you in the next video.